Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast. That is, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Gigot here with Elliot Kaufman and Joe Sternberg. Let's listen to President Biden talk about his support for Israel here after the second attack by Iran on Israel.
No administration has helped Israel more than I have. None. And I think Bibi should remember that. And whether he's trying to influence the election, I don't know, but I'm not counting on that.
You've said many times recently that you want to speak to him, that you plan to.
No, I didn't say plan to. I didn't say want to.
You don't want to?
No, I didn't say that. You're making it sound like I'm seeking and then speaking. I'm assuming when they make the judgment of how they're going to respond, we will then have a discussion.
Joe, the president says he's supported Israel unlike any other president. What's your judgment about that support over the last year?
Well, I mean, it would be a really nice statement if it were true, but I don't really think that you can say that it is. You know, I think that, again, the problem we've all had over the past year is that at the time that Israel has shifted into understanding that it needs to find a new way to protect itself from these enemies who have a committed, deeply seated ideological reason for wanting to destroy it. And, we've seen Israel adjust its, political and strategic thinking and its military tactics to reflect that. We aren't really seeing that kind of change in Washington. Instead, I think that the approach from the Biden administration and from European partners who should be much more allied with Israel than they are on this has been slowly, softly, and please don't do anything. There's this constant attempt to try to talk up how they're trying to restrain Netanyahu or discourage him from prosecuting the war in the way that Israel thinks that it needs to defend itself here. And, this is coming against a backdrop where, the Biden administration and even the Obama administration, if we want to go further back in time, sort of paved the way for this in the way that they allowed Iran to pursue its regional ambitions at the same time that they were so eager to negotiate with Tehran on its nuclear program. And I think that you kind of can't separate these two things because certainly no one in Washington wanted what happened on October 7th to happen. But it's also true that we have missed so many opportunities over the years to try to degrade Iran's ambitions and Israel's enemies in the region before it would get to that point. And, now instead of learning from that experience and reflecting on those mistakes, you have this tendency to try to double down, to try to argue that somehow diplomacy is going to be the solution to this problem that diplomacy helped create, and that the answer has to be to put all of the pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel and none of the pressure on Iran or its proxies. And, I think that's a real problem.
Well, I think the comment by Elizabeth Warren and by President Biden, his treatment of Israel, no question, stalwart support by the president in the initial instance after October 7th. But as the conflict evolved, he became much more critical, and including at one point, his administration talked about withholding weapons from Israel. Now, the crucial point here is that this reflects a change inside the Democratic coalition, the party coalition. The anti-Israeli left now has a significant sway inside the Democratic Party. I don't want to say it's a dominant sway because it's not. There's still many members who are very supportive of Israel, but you see those fault lines emerge. You saw it in Chuck Schumer's statement attacking Benjamin Netanyahu earlier this year, extraordinary statement, and you see it in other ways. And that has affected the willingness of the president to offer stalwart support to Israel. And here we are as Israel plans to respond militarily to Iran's second missile barrage. President Biden has said, well, don't attack their nuclear sites. Well, probably shouldn't attack their oil resources. So he's hemming Israel and Netanyahu in a way that makes Iran think, well, maybe the damage won't be great.
Yes. And I think there are two groups of sort of democratic foreign policy thought that are worth looking at here. The first, let's call them the cycle of violence types. People who think that force does not achieve anything, cannot achieve anything. Now, to my mind, this was a talking point at the start of the war that is horribly out of place now. I mean, people said going into Gaza would only make Hamas stronger, and so Israel should just stay out. The Biden administration argued that behind closed doors at the very start. And yet Hamas is terribly weak at the moment. It can't come to Hezbollah's aid when it would like to. At the start of the war, it launched thousands of rockets. Today, 1 year later, it had to save up. It hasn't shot rockets in weeks. It just saved up for this October 7th anniversary. It shot 10 rockets. Hamas is weaker than it was before, and that's actually a condition of establishing peace. Hezbollah, same thing. It's being kicked out of southern Lebanon. That is a condition for some sort of durable ceasefire, semi-durable ceasefire, let's say. But there is another wing of Democratic Party foreign policy thought that is, I think, much more malign here. And that is the wing that celebrated on October 7th. And you see this in the major campus protest wings, significant activist groups. They weren't expelled from the Democratic Party coalition for celebrating mass murder of civilians. No, they're still part of it. They're still an activist base that the Democratic Party can't give into, but can't fully alienate. They have to negotiate with them. And that's where you see this sort of democratic policy where there are people there who want to back Israel, but they know they can't quite be seen doing that. It's very difficult for them. And that's why this policy arises.
And that has implications here for the presidential campaign and what Vice President Harris has been saying. It also will play out, I think, in a Harris administration if she wins the election. And the outburst of anti-Semitism on American campuses, I think, has been truly shocking. I never would have thought that that was possible, but it is there. It continues, and something that we as a society and a political culture are going to have to deal with and contain. We'll leave it there on the first anniversary of the massacre of October 7th, 2023. Thanks to Joe Sternberg. Thanks to Elliot Kaufman. I'm Paul Gigot. We're here every day on Potomac Watch, and we'll hope you'll be here with us. Thanks for listening.